If you don't have time to justify a dedicated gaming handheld, the iPad mini 7 is a compelling option. Not only does the 7th generation iPad mini come with a much needed spec bump that will really help out in terms of performance, these days iPadOS has access to so many different kinds of games and systems, as well as lots of options in the peripherals department, that it really is a very solid little gaming device. Now, of course, a lot of people were disappointed that the iPad mini didn't come with an OLED display or push further than a 60Hz refresh rate. Of course, if you are playing a darker game like Resident Evil 4 or Hades, it's not going to look as striking as it does on something like the Steam Deck OLED. But that LCD display is beautiful in its own right. The colours are vibrant, it's sharp and crisp, and you can get quite a lot of brightness out of such a small display. If you're playing games in the native 3:2 aspect ratio, they're going to look really immersive. Minecraft is a brilliant example of this. And of course, if you're playing systems that run in a different aspect ratio, you will see some cropping in the form of black bars, but compared to the experience of playing on an iPhone, that's going to be still a very nice experience. I don't personally mind that it's being locked at 60 frames per second anyway, because honestly, even though that new A17 chip does allow you to reach into titles like Resident Evil 4, when you do play in them, you will still notice some drop frames. So really, in terms of gaming, there would have been no huge benefit to including a ProMotion display if you weren't going to give this one of the M series chips to really bolster that performance. But at least though, you will have enough storage to actually store some of these games, because the base model of the iPad mini 7 comes with 128 gigabytes of storage. Some of these games are 10-15 gigabytes. For whatever reason, I still can't get Assassin's Creed Mirage to load up on the iPad mini. Honestly, if you are looking to play genuine AAA titles, I wouldn't personally be looking at an iPad. But at the same time, it is amazing how far the iPad has come from the days of pure mobile gaming. And unfortunately, this is still a really frustrating category, even when publishers like Nintendo are stepping into the ring and making Fire Emblem games. This is a game which has so much potential on the iPad mini. Sometimes the dialogue on JRPGs can be really tedious, but seeing it presented on this beautiful display in a graphic novel style format actually makes it worth reading the dialogue and following the story. But unfortunately, it's not going to be so easy to actually get to the battles and the good parts of the game. You're still going to have to navigate through some really poor mobile gaming UI and swipe away all these random collectibles that you're going to be bombarded with until you buy some on the shop. I just wish mobile gaming would let the games take center stage. At the same time, if you do want to push the iPad a little bit further, it really pays to pick up a controller. You can use one like the Razer Kishi or the GameSir G8 Plus, which is my personal go-to option. This is a console style controller that you can slide open and then snap onto either side of your iPad mini. You do have to watch with placement because it's very easy for the edges to press onto the volume up or the power button. So you want to make sure you've got it in the right position. But then it just connects via Bluetooth and you've got yourself a lovely gamepad. And this is where the iPad mini really shines as a gaming device, because you've now got this brilliant little gamepad and access to loads of different systems with all kinds of games for every kind of gamer. There's actually a decent array of games that you can outright purchase in the App Store, from retro classics like the Final Fantasy series to more modern, casual, survival-based games like Minecraft or Stardew Valley. If you want proof that I am a casual gamer, just look at how bad I am at Minecraft. But at the same time, like, this is just a brilliant game to have on the iPad, especially if you've got kids, because then alongside the game, you've got all those parental controls that iOS gives you as well, which can limit things like screen time much better than something like a Nintendo Switch, let's say. At the same time, if you don't want to sink $10 or $15 into an iPadOS game, then I completely understand that too. And actually, you might have access to a lot of these games already in a subscription that you already pay for. That could be Apple One, which will give you access to Apple Arcade and have an array of different games there. But it might even be something like Netflix, which has now integrated lots of different games into its streaming package. You can get Football Manager handheld on there. You can even play Hades through Netflix, which blows my mind in a way. And yeah, the way it works is you essentially download the app separately to your iPad as kind of a standalone game, but you use your Netflix login to actually gain access to it. and then it just runs exactly like Hades would from the App Store directly. Another great way to game on the iPad is through game streaming services. Now, of course, if you do want to play Game Pass Ultimate, you will have to contend with the fact that it basically runs through a Safari web app, which doesn't make for the best experience if we're being honest. But you can still play all those cloud games on your iPad. If you have a PlayStation 5, but other members of the family tend to use the TV, then you can simply link your iPad to that device using Remote Play, and then that'll give you access to all the games you have on your PlayStation. This is of course really dependent on your internet access, so I would recommend using an Ethernet cable to connect your PlayStation to your Wi-Fi router. But if this does work for you, then it can be an amazing option of getting access to that console. One thing to point out is if you are using GameSir G8 Plus with Remote Play, then the gyroscope of the controller and the gyroscope of the phone or iPad are really going to interfere with each other. So if you are using those kind of gyro controls, then it's just going to get really confused. So I would go into the settings and switch them off and just use the joystick instead. Something else that's really cool to do on your iPad mini is use it for emulation. I'm not going to show any footage of that in this video because there are a lot of copyright strikes flying around these days, but the cool thing is you can download an app like RetroArch, and that will actually give you emulation all the way up to PlayStation Portal. As a further demonstration of just how powerful the iPad mini 7 is though, you can even use this as a little mini game capture device. I've got my iPad mini hooked up to an Elgato Capture Neo, which in turn is linked to the HDMI port of my Nintendo Switch. And now using the Elgato Capture app, I can actually create game recordings of my iPad mini. And again, I just love the fact that you can do this on such a small portable device. If you are kind of a gaming creator, whatever, you just want to share clips with your friends, you can just take this little device with you alongside your iPad mini, basically create content wherever you are. And then, you know, you could even put that into Final Cut Pro on the iPad mini and clip up the footage in there. So the iPad mini is primarily a productivity device, but if you want to, you can play all these different gaming systems on it. Now, the complete inverse of that is perhaps the Lenovo Legion Go, which is a really interesting device in that it's basically just a Windows tablet. So it can run any kind of Microsoft application you want, even things that are maybe a bit more intensive than you can run on the iPad. But of course, the primary focus there is gaming. So if you want to see how I got on with that device, check out this video here. But thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in a bit.